Alrighty, let's begin then. Let me just move my camera a bit. Maybe the wrong way there. This way. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so let's have a look at the division build first. Now, the one I looked at yesterday actually was fairly fine, but this one I would actually make quite a lot of changes. And the first thing that is a kind of problem here, I would say, is no CQC infantry in A and no CQC infantry in C. And I think I even said yesterday, looking at the division build, that that was still a mistake that was made there. At least if you have some in B, they might carry through to C, but then having none in A, you're kind of gonna shoot yourself in the foot waiting for if you get into those CQC environments, your Einsatztruppen, your Panzer Grenadiers, they're not going to do the job. And you do still have two cards of Stone Pioneers and a card of Pioneers here, so you could still use them. If you want to take the Einsatztruppen, that's fine. You could lose the leader, and you could throw in either Stone Pioneers in A or the Pioneers in A as well, and then also throw another one in C if you really wanted to. You could even lose the Panzer Grenadiers and just stick with the Einsatztruppen in A. And then it might look like something like this. We take this and put it in A, and take the Pioneers here and also put them in C. And then you've got enough to do line infantry stuff, CQC, line infantry, CQC, line infantry, sorry, here, and CQC again. You're covering your bases with those necessary things. Yeah, this was 2 games in a row where I was absolutely punished for having no CQC infantry. I won't be making that mistake in the future, right? Yeah, because it doesn't matter if people tell you to do it, you only really listen when you start getting pounded in the face by it, right? How about the Recon Tab? Okay, SPWs, these are nice. Those are good anti-infantry vehicles. The Panzer IIIs are good as well. You've got the Aufklärer. They can do the recon spotting. Fine. Fine, fine, fine. Now for the Tank Tab, you're not gonna buy this King Tiger in A. If you buy this in A, you're making a mistake. Especially if it's not like, if it's like a 10v10, okay, you can get away with it because you have your allies to kind of cover for you. If you're playing a 1v1 or a 2v2, buying a King Tiger in A is a bit of a mistake because it costs so many points. And it only takes one cluster plane to get rid of your King Tiger and buy 260 points. So keeping one card of these in B, okay, is fine. Or even 2 cards in B is fine if you want to carry some over to C phase. But then otherwise, if we take this out, you've got 5 Shermans and 2 Panzer IVs in A. Okay, that's acceptable. But then we look at the anti-tank tab, and you've got no anti-tank guns in A. You could have taken these Pak 38s in A, get 6 of them. They will take out medium and light tanks fairly well, and they're only 45 points. The problem with the S307F Pak is that because it's a vehicle, and it only has 25 frontal armor, it will die to other tanks very, very easily, probably in just one penetrating hit. It can't hide in a forest, so a lot of the time these weaker units, they benefit from being able to hide. This unit is very hard to use well, so I would just not take it, and I would take the Pak 38 instead, put that there. This in B is fine. Mortar, you could take in A or B, it's up to you really. Some Panzerschreck is fine. It's also very slow, wasn't able to bring it up to where it needed to be in time. Yeah, it's hard to use King Tiger as well, and like heavy tanks are kind of a noob trap in Steel Division 2. New players look at these big heavy tanks that cost so many points, and they think, yeah, if I bring this heavy tank, then I'm gonna kick ass, I'm gonna kill everything. But it's not the case. You're gonna spend almost 300 points for one slow tank that might arrive where you want it to, or might not, or by the time it arrives there, you want it in a different place instead. And so it locks 260 points into this one location, into one gun. One gun, remember that. If you bought instead Panzer 4Hs, you could get like 4 of these instead of one King Tiger. And you could spread those 4 out across the map. You could put them in groups of 2, and they would be effective anti-tank that can move around, that can affect more of the map in different places, rather than being locked into one place like that. So I would even take, let's see, those in B, those in C is fine. I would even take another Panzer H in A. And most of the time, actually, the Panzer IV-G is also a bit of a noob trap because it's kind of crappy compared to the Panzer IV-H. It has slower turret turn time, which makes it weaker, which is why it's 10 points cheaper. So I would even take those out and just take the normal Panzer IVs in B instead. And then it would look like this. Let's see, the support tab, we do not take the Feld Gendarmerie, not these ones, the 4-man squads, they're absolutely useless, and that's a waste of 3 activation points that you could have used for something else. Instead of that, you could take, for example, Guerrilla. You saw how effective they were against yourself in the match I did yesterday. You could take the Flammenwerfer on motorbikes in A. Those are very nice for getting into advanced positions, jumping into a forest or a town where they can do some nice damage with that flamethrower at close range. Or even the Panzer IV-C here. This is a great infantry support tank. And it's only 30 points. I mean, it doesn't have great armor, but you're not using this tank to fight other tanks. You could use it to kill half-tracks, you can use it as infantry support, it's really cheap. You can bring 3 of them at 1 vet. That's nice, it works pretty well for what it is. Let's see, and now the anti-air tab, bringing this one anti-air in A. Instead, you could have brought 2 Flak 41s, and these things are amazing at the moment. They have armor-piercing shells, 160 millimeters of penetration, 10 rounds a minute at 2,000 meter range. Their HE shells work fantastically as well, and then let's not forget that this is supposed to be an anti-air gun, and it does that job fantastically as well. This is such a strong unit at the moment, performs well in every single role that you can put it in. So if you take that out and you take 2 of these instead, that's a much stronger choice, I think. Is there any way to see turret traverse speed? No, you just go into game, you see your tanks turning abysmally and dying, and then you decide never to buy the Panzer IV-J again. That's the way it goes. The support tab here, this Rheinwerfer, okay, it's a cool little truck with a whole bunch of mortars on it, right? But it's 120 points. Instead of this, you could take this card of mortars, only 85 points. You get 2 of them. This is an armored mortar, basically, so you can move it around. It has a radio, and because it's armored, even if your opponents counter battery it with their own mortars, it's gonna survive. You're gonna be able to get it out of there by reversing or whatever. It works really well, and it's only 85 points. So that's 35 points cheaper than this Rheinwerfer, right? And if we think about how much we spend each minute, do you want to spend all your resources on one single artillery truck like this? Or do you want to buy one mortar truck and then also bring some infantry or something else to support elsewhere? You know, you could bring this truck and also an SMG or some infantry or you know, an SBW. It gives you more kind of variety and flexibility rather than having super expensive units. And then in the air tab, if we remove this Recon Plane, we see that that costs 3 activation points, which is a bit much for Recon Planes that a lot of the time are quite easy to lose and they are difficult to use well. So instead of that, you could bring either, no, don't bring this one, it's bad resilience. You could bring a heavy bomber instead, right? This is nice for deleting some infantry or pinning them down. In A, it's got 3 availability in A. And it's only 95 points. So you can bring this out to bomb some infantry, some anti-tank guns, whatever is giving you trouble at that time. And it's not too expensive, it has medium resilience, it has good speed. So a lot of the time it can go out, it gets the bombs on target pretty quick, and it can evacuate without dying to anti-air because it's got that medium resilience and good speed. Focke-Wulfs in B, okay, I can agree with that, I guess. The Focke-Wulf 190s, yes, these are nice. They also work well as close air support because of their heavy armament. In the second game, a Flak 88 managed to one-shot a P-51 twice. Yeah, the Flak 88s are just really, really strong at the moment. And that's why, if you have them available, you take them. Absolutely, 100% take them. And so now, re-editing your division, it looks like this. I'll take a screenshot and send it to you on Discord. And now we can have a look at the replay. Let's see, where's the replay? Prinz short, this one. So this is a 12-minute game. I suspect buying a King Tiger had something to do with that. Okay, let's just jump the speed up. Let's watch it from your perspective. You're on this side. Okay. What's the deployment looking like? Okay, you're using, I hope that's the fast hunt order. You're using the Y key here, or the deploy key, instead of fast move. Okay, that's good. This is, again, bad deployment here. Don't deploy on the front of the forest. Deploy at the back of the forest, like here. This way, anything on this hill that comes cannot shoot your stuff. But deploying here, anything that comes over this hill that's fast will be able to shoot your units before they deploy. Deploy into the forest and then you move up. It's much safer. Will stop your things from getting sniped. Okay, off we go. Let me reduce the speed. What should I be looking for in planes in general? I honestly think that the air tab in general is my weakest link. I mean, it depends. Every division has different kinds of planes, and you can use them differently. So it's hard to say, like, in general, what you want. But higher resilience is better than lower resilience. Higher speed is better than lower speed. More guns is better than less guns. And if you can get those units for less points rather than more points, of course, that's going to be pretty good as well. I'm not sure what this order is here. This is the Recon Plane, right? So let's see, SPW goes out into the open here. Now this is a kind of killing zone, this basin here, right? Because everything around it is higher terrain. And so what people tend to do is they put tanks, they put anti-tank guns in the forests here, all along here, and any vehicles you bring into this area tend to be toast pretty quick. Now if you want to deploy into this forest here, the best way to do that is down this road. Not coming down this road and then traveling across the forest like this. Like if you want to take this road, that's going to be because you're deploying into the forest here to have a look over into the basin, and then you provide, you know, fire support or covering fire against all this area so that your opponents can't just like go and take the objectives in here. This is a very nice spot for that. If you want to go into this forest, use this road, which means you're probably going to use this deployment spawn here. Now, I see you're sending the Aufklärer here, right? I think that's what you're doing. Okay, yeah. So if you put your recon infantry into this forest here, and we want to use recon infantry to spot things, right? Let's press C key on the forest. They can't see that far. I mean, they can see down this road, I guess, which is okay. But putting them on this hill here would also be really nice. You see, you'll be able to see up onto the hill here. You would be able to see what's coming down this road before it gets there. You could even put it here, right at the edge on this corner, and you get nice line of sight over there as well. Let's see how these deploy. Now again, like I said last game, you're watching the influence line right at the start of the game. Redeploy these units to go ahead as soon as you can if you see that. Good, you did that, that's nice. Get them into this forest here. Don't deploy at the front of the forest, like... Could have kept them going a little bit, I think. And again, the move order. Don't do the move order. Q move, every single time Q move. So now because they got caught out in the open by the Gas AA and the BA-10, they're falling back. That's fine, they're still at kind of full health, right? No big deal. They'll regain suppression and come back. Here, you're being more aggressive, that's good. Now at this stage here, You don't need to send your infantry up the road here. You could bring them over to the right and then up the road. Maybe it could be a little bit safer. Let's see. Yep, nothing over this side can see your units here. And again, the move order. No, 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 no. And going into the basin here with your vehicles is a good way to get them killed, because they can be shot from multiple angles, right? They can be shot from here, 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 here. So, consider the terrain when you want to choose where to send your units. This is a death zone, essentially. Never go into this basin. Just take the nice strong positions around it and let your opponent go into it so that you can abuse them instead of them abusing you. Again, move orders. No, 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 no. Q move every time, please. Okay. And here, you didn't need to attack with this SPW and with this half track here. Like, you can get your infantry into the forest, you can bring your SPWs into the forest, the light forest here with them, right? Because the road generally is going to have tanks or something on it, and SPWs, they're not so great at that, at fighting enemy tanks unless they are light tanks or you really outnumber them. And light forest is a bad place for infantry a lot of the time. Heavy forest is the safest place for them. Now you could also use these half tracks to support here. You see this location here next to the heavy forest is still blocking these vehicles from seeing them, right? So you could have brought one carefully along here. Wouldn't have mattered if you'd lost it, it's quite cheap. You could have brought another one along this side here as well. And now that you know your opponent has tanks here, you should be buying something to kind of counter that, right? An anti-tank gun on here would be good. But you didn't put any anti-tank guns in A, which is a problem with the division build. Now these tanks, the M4s, the Panzer IVs, they're good at long range, right? But this is 2-kilometer range, and you've got 3 of them here. Now what are they doing? What are they doing at the moment for you? I would argue nothing. They're not doing anything. They're sat there, and they look pretty. They're very shiny, yes, but they just sit there. And this is what we call efficiency of force. Okay, von Clausewitz on war, very famous Prussian general. When you have units, or the units that you have to be using them. If you have, let's see, this is going to be 80, 160, another 70, so that's 230 points of units in tanks here, and you're not using them, then what's the point of having them here? If you had these 3 tanks, or even just one of these tanks on this side, that would perfectly counter these tanks that your opponent has here. Instead, you've centralized all your anti-tank into one location, and now your opponent can bully you on this side instead, where you have no anti-tank at all. This Aufklärer in too forward a position gets wiped out. These infantry should be moving into the forest. On the edge here, they can still be seen and shot. Good, you move those in, that's nice. This is a move order, big no-no. Q move only. Now you still had SS troop in here. I don't know why you didn't move them into the forest here and instead just brought more Panzer Grenadiers, more SS Truppen. So you're reinforcing this area here with infantry when you can see, I think quite clearly, that your opponent has a lot of vehicles and tanks, right? And these infantry do not even have Panzerfaust. They don't have any anti-tank weapons. You bring one Panzer III over here. It might be enough, but on the other hand, these 3 tanks might also be able to overwhelm it and kill it anyway. So you want to respond in a way where you would win the engagement rather than respond piecemeal. So in this case, you see your opponent has vehicles. You want to bring something that can counter the vehicles. That means tanks. No tanks being brought. You do still have tanks over this side, but they're just sitting there, and they're not being used to do something. So the way we play is we set up a kind of everything front line. So when we try to cover, let's say, this road here, we put maybe some infantry, maybe an MG into the forest here. We could put anti-tank guns and MGs into the forest here. We could put tanks behind the forest here on the hill, and you pop them out to shoot and reverse them back if it's too difficult. And there you have a nice kind of defensive line. You have things that will take care of infantry, you have things that will take care of tanks and vehicles too. And then if your opponent comes out and it's vehicles, you kill those vehicles, and then you have a points advantage. And after you have that points advantage, you can then try to advance and take this objective. Maybe put some infantry into these buildings to secure the objective, while your other units support from the hill here, from the forest here, and from this location as well. You could even use this light forest here. Similarly, you could put tanks behind the forest. When you know there are enemy units here, you just move them through the light forest. They get line of sight, they can shoot. If they're losing, if it's too bad for them, just reverse and they are safe again, like that. So you build a combined arms force. This spamming infantry here is not combined arms, it's just spam. This of course results in all of my infantry dying to T-26s because they can't do anything about them. Yeah, and you have Panzer Shreks in your anti-tank tab, but you haven't brought any out yet either. That's what they're for killing tanks. And again, you're clumping your units up instead of spreading them out. Again here, these are clumped up, but these units are just sitting here. Like, what is their purpose at the moment? Are they on vacation? Are they having a picnic? Like, one Ersatztruppen could hold the line like this just as well as 2 or 3. So why have 2 or 3? Why not send the other 2 across and try to see if you can probe into the forest here? Why keep 2 Ersatztruppen here? What is their purpose? What are they doing? Why not send them through the forest here and probe and try to take control of this forest here as well? But again, you would need some anti-tank infantry with them, so that if they do encounter any tanks, they can take care of that. At the moment, 4 Ersatztruppen in the forest here are, well, they can defend against infantry, sure, but that's it. And your opponent doesn't have much infantry, they have tanks. So you have to respond to what your opponent has. This is why there's no, like, single one way to win, or no single playstyle or strategy that you can use to win, because every game you set up and then you judge what your opponent has and you try to react to that. And as you get more experienced with the game, then you can start to build your own strategies because you know what players tend to bring. But until you get more experienced and you have that knowledge and you can take advantage of that knowledge, just setting up with combined arms and then reacting to what your opponent has would be an easier way to play. Now this Rheinwerfer, 120 points here. Is it going to die to the BA-10M? Okay, no. Your pack gets it. I don't think you've used this yet. This is 120 points being tied up that you could have spent on tanks, right? 120 points not doing anything. Again, 300 points here. Okay, now the Panzer IV has been able to shoot. This M10A1 destroyer is just out of range. Let's check the range on this. It does get 2 kilometer range APCR, but only 3 shells. So it can engage your Panzer IV at range and win that fight if it wants to. P51D. Your Focke-Wulf. No, the P51D is faster than the Focke-Wulf, right? But I think your Focke-Wulf might be able to... Oof. The turning radius on that is incredible. And what is your... Okay, sometimes you have to micro your planes. If you just right-click and let them do their own thing, they can fly around the map the whole time doing absolutely nothing. And here comes the King Tiger. And tanks have to be supported with infantry. So just bringing this tank down is not going to work. Some recon in here, some infantry in here so that you can at least spot. Maybe even some infantry over on this side here just to look down the road for the King Tiger, and then yeah, it could hold this position, but it's still just one tank. And if your opponent then decides to push in another area, you have a choice. You leave the King Tiger here or you move it. You move it, you can't control this area anymore. This is a lot of points tied up, not doing much. Just like this is also a lot of points tied up, not doing much. I think this M10 A1 might now kill your Panzer IV. Oh, it's shooting at the... No, there we go. 2 misses. Okay, so it's only got 1 shell left, I think. And does get the hit. Now if this one should still have some ammo left. Yeah. Now if this one also shoots at the Panzer IV, the Panzer IV will be toast. So in this situation here, you know that these tanks are here and that your tanks are getting shot. They need to be reversed. You want to put these tanks, because the M4s, they only have 1500 meter range. So you want to put them in a location where they can see and shoot 1500 meters and not further, because otherwise enemy units that have 2 kilometer range or 1750 range will take advantage of your M4s and not the other way around. When we press the C key here, this is a 2 kilometer range location, right? Especially because of this hill here. Enemy units can shoot down on you. Whereas over here, this is much better. Okay, this is a good place for an M4. This is a good place for an M4. You can back behind the forest if you want. If there's anything here to abuse you, you can jump through the forest here to shoot things. They're much better at closer range than kind of long range sniping. Again, G key for moving backwards, not right click. King Tigers do not work in close quarters, so this is not going to work well. And again, on this side now, you're still not reinforcing with this heavy forest. The heavy forest are like your fortifying locations. And wherever the front line is and there's a heavy forest, you need something in that heavy forest. You need something in here, you need something in here. No other way about it. Whereas the influence line here, you see, you could be moving infantry into this location here. You have the SS troop in here. They could be probing, they could be fighting enemy infantry. And this is not pressuring your opponent. Like, you can still hide inside the heavy forest like this. And tanks cannot shoot your infantry as long as they are within this heavy forest and not at the edge, like the edge here. Tank can go into the light forest and shoot them. But right inside, deep inside the heavy forest, your infantry are safe from vehicles. Okay, you use the Rheinwerfer here. I don't think it did anything. I'm not sure if there's any infantry actually in that part of the forest. No, there's nothing there, we see. Too many times I'm just looking somewhere else and my units die elsewhere. Yeah. Yes, that happens to all of us. That's part of the game. The key is that you give your units orders and you know that these orders will be carried out well. So you know that sending some of these SS Truppen on a Q move into this forest here, they're still, at least if they encounter enemy infantry, they will do something. But sending them to Q move across the open area here, where they can be spotted by things on top of the hill, things on the road, is not going to go well for them. So it's just knowing, I guess, whether something will be carried out effectively by your units, even when you're not watching. That's the thing that you want to aim for. Now, still not using these M4s, I don't know why you didn't reroute them to come back to where the fighting is actually happening. Like at this stage, you see your opponent doesn't really have anything here. You have your Aufklärer on the hill, and it's spotting, it's telling you there's nothing really happening here. You could put some infantry into the town here to try and hold this flag and this flag, but because there's nothing there, the influence line is collapsing in on you a bit here. You do need some units in this town. We see the center of the map here. Neither you nor your ally has really done anything, and so your Your opponents have taken 3 objectives here. Okay, the flag veering. But it's on a move order, Q move, always Q move. Might get the kill. Oh, IL-2 resilience is too good. Fighters come out and your Focke-Wulf turns into the fighters, so they are behind it. Bad time to turn. Now you can also utilize this light forest here. Like your SPW, you could send down the road, down the hill here, and along the light forest here, and anything on the hill, you see, isn't going to spot it. And then it might be able to get some flanking shots on anything that's hiding here, but if it's just tanks, it's still not going to do that very well. Flak 88 would be great to position on the hill somewhere here, either in the forest here as well. Will kill plenty of things. This Panzerschreck, it's not really where you want it. You want it following your infantry here, and then when they encounter a vehicle, the Panzerschreck is brought ahead and takes out the vehicle. Let's see, there's a T-26. Oh, King Tiger. Almost killed there. At this point, there's 45 seconds until I lose, and I am desperately trying to get a few flags to try and delay the game until I can muster forces, yeah. Let's see. So you didn't really have much impact on the game. 485 in kills, 665 in losses, because you didn't deploy, or neither you nor your ally even covered anything in that center area, right? And you have to deploy evenly, so you can place a what do you call it, a flare down on the map and say, okay, everything to the left of the flare I will take care of, everything to the right of the flare is up to you to take care of. And just make sure that at the start of the game, all of the objectives that are on your side of the map, you have units covering those objectives and keeping those objectives safe. And that way at least it stays at an even 12-12. And then after that, I mean, make sure when you deploy that you deploy a combined arms force, not just one kind of unit, not just infantry. You need anti-tank, you need anti-infantry. You don't usually need anti-air right at the start, but you need something like some anti-tank guns, some MGs. If there's heavy forest, you need some CQC infantry to win those forest fights and things like that. And you just set up so that the 12-12 is stabilized. And then as your opponent comes and you see what units your opponent has, hopefully also using recon units to help with that, then you can decide, okay, my opponent has brought a whole bunch of infantry into this forest, so buying some mortars or some planes to bomb them, that would be a good way to counter that. Or my opponent has brought a whole bunch of tanks, so buying some tanks in this location or anti-tank guns here would be a good way to counter that. And not just spamming one kind of unit that doesn't counter what your opponent has brought. So let's have a look now at the second one. Look at the division build first. So in this one, again, did you bring CQC infantry in A? No. It's got to be done, but I guess you learn that lesson the hard way, right? Pioneers, stern pioneers, you need CQC infantry in every single phase. So you could take one of these out, you could even take the leader out, you could put the pioneers like this in A, put some more pioneers in C. Let's see, line infantry, CQC, line infantry, CQC, line, CQC. Okay, that's fine, that works like that. For the tank tab, that's okay. I think a lot of players tend to put the Panther Ds in B so that you can get more of them, because you can usually get through A phase with your few Stugs and some anti-tank guns, the Pack 40 for example. And that way you have at least two more Panther Ds for the kind of long game. And this being a balanced deployment, I would say you are aiming for the long game here, right? Recon, how about these Sweden Zug? Okay, those are fine. The Pumas, fantastic vehicle. I love these. Yeah, okay, I can't say there's anything really wrong with that. The support tab. Okay, MG's in A. 633 in A. Okay, that's fine. Commander, yep, okay. Okay, and again, most people tend to bring these two-man Flammenwerfer on the motorbikes in A just for that kind of aggressive deployment with the fast transport. You know, it's faster than normal infantry trucks. So they can get into a position that prevents your opponent from deploying as aggressively as they might like to. And if your opponent doesn't see them, then what your opponent does see is just that the influence line has been pushed, and then they have to react to that. They don't know what you've put there. Anti-tank, okay, this is fine, but I probably would have brought another Pack 40 instead of this one in B. An extra 5 of these are very nice. Good AP penetration, nice APCR as well. Very, very good overall anti-tank guns. Again, the Flak 41s, always bring these. They are just too strong at the moment. Take one of these out. Throw one of these in B. These are beautiful. Flak 36s are also really, really nice. You could take that out and put these in A as well if you wanted. That way you still have a cheap anti-air option in A. And if you want to bring the big boy out for the nice Omni role, then you have that option as well. Artillery, okay, mortars in A is always a good choice. These in B is fine. That in B is fine. Okay, I can't say there's anything super wrong with that. The AR-234, one in A, one in B. Okay, that can work as well. These Ju-87s can work really, really well in A, but they do require a bit of micro and a bit of understanding of the game, but you can really, really mess people up with this thing. And I did delete something, so actually you could take these. Okay, this looks fine like this. Actually, I would just take this one out and put that there instead. Okay, yeah. Otherwise, this is all, now this looks okay. But the key thing really is that you do have this CQC infantry available. One of the most important things. And the Flak 41s, they are too good to not take at the moment. Okay, let's have a look at the replay. Are leaders and commanders worth it? Yes, but if you look at the battle group, right? This one, for example, has quite a short infantry tab, and in that case, then, you generally always want to have enough infantry first before you then add in the leaders, right? If you really, really want some leaders, then you can also take the artillery leaders, right? Because you have a spare two-point slot here that you can use instead of using your expensive slots here. This is 4 points, right? So you could get some leaders for 2 activation points instead of 4 in that way. But having the key ingredients, which is line infantry and CQC infantry in every phase first, is most important. And then if you have room, you can bring the leaders. Otherwise, you'll be fine. You'll be just fine without leaders. You can still play the game without leaders. They don't make or break the game for you. A lot of the time, I don't bother bringing a commander, if I'm honest. But that's just my own personal way of playing. So let's see, where is the Prinz long? Okay, this one. So same map again. Okay, you're over this side. Now, if you're deploying units here, they're probably going to go down this road, and then they're going to cut to the left, right? And this is too close to the influence line. They're going to be going up this hill here as enemy units arrive on top of this hill, and there's a chance that they're going to get sniped if your opponent is fast. So this is not a good idea. See, your opponent's units are already there. They might get sniped, they might not. Let's see. Going into this forest is a good idea. Deploying into this forest and this forest with your infantry is a good idea. Don't deploy next to the road in the light forest like this. Deploy onto the edge of the heavy forest, the edge of the heavy forest here, behind things where they can't just get sniped by fast units. And getting something onto this hill here would also be a good idea. Let me just reduce the speed. Now you've got Pumas, those are really fast. You can get them ahead to start sniping things. Here comes your Puma, great use of the Puma. Hopefully it gets the kill. Yes, that was fantastic. That's what we use Pumas for. It's transport sniping right at the start of the game. They are fantastic at that. That was not a good buy. You don't need to buy the AR-234 right at the start of the game like that. It's a great plane. But keep it for when you know your opponents have a clump of units somewhere and they're not moving, they're stationary somewhere. In comes the jet bomber, and bye-bye goes the clump of infantry. A lot of the time you want to avoid the expensive buys at the start of the game. Buy more of the cheap things rather than one expensive thing. Okay, here's the units going across, and they are in range of this M4A1, right? So this is dangerous. This is a dangerous deployment that you've got going on here. Yep, the Panzer Grenadier is under fire. You might lose some of these. Yep, there's one. So I called this. Even before it happened, I called it. I could see just by the way you were deploying that this is potentially something that's going to happen. Here's one. There's two. Is it going to be three? I think it's going to be three. Lucky. You got lucky. So you have to deploy behind things, not so close to the front line here. Or if it is close to the front line, at least behind something. Behind the forest here. If you want to go into this forest here, deploy here and then just move them up. At least that way they're not going to die before they even arrive, right? Flak 41. Fantastic position there. Perfectly covers the road. Will take care of these M41s. No problem at all. Now, I don't know why you deployed these infantry into this forest here. Like when you start the game, you want to look at the line, right? And you look at the objectives and then you say, okay, pretty much next to the line, I want to deploy here, 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 something like that. Make sure it's behind something so they can't get transport sniped. And then as you set up, once things are stabilized, you look at what your opponent has brought, you look at maybe what you are missing, and then you start to try and fill in these gaps. And it doesn't have to be super spammy, it doesn't have to be super reactionary. This flag in the back of the forest here will not see any planes and won't shoot them, and it's too far back anyway because it has quite short range. 2,000 meters. It can't see because of being in the heavy forest anyway, but it won't even start shooting at a plane until it's around here, right? If the enemy bomber is targeting this infantry or this infantry, its bombs will be well away before this flag ever starts shooting. This one, on the other hand, very good position. Bye-bye M4. Poof. Okay, these two Panzer Grenadiers, that's fine. You could also bring the Puma along the side here to support as well. You see, in this position, it would be able to shoot at the infantry in the buildings. Oh, I think you can see here how good the Flak 41 is, right? But now look. Look at the influence line here. What's happening here? What do you think? You have a leader at the front and a Panzer Grenadier at the back, and that should be reversed. Leaders have to be at the back because their circle of leadership buff is quite big. So you could sit this unit even back here. It would still buff this Panzer Grenadier. It would also buff the Flak 41, which it is not doing right now. And we do not use leaders for combat, just for the buff, nothing else. This Aufklärer, that's fine, but you got to watch out. This influence line here is telling you that your opponent has something coming this way, probably some infantry. And if they do send them out, okay, it's just a flamethrower. Your leader can take care of that. Don't right click to attack, always Q move. Okay, and because you deployed these Panzer Grenadiers so far back now, your opponent has managed to take control of this forest pretty easily. Which you could have avoided, but you would have needed to bring some CQC infantry into here to ensure the control. Yeah, I realized that the Flak 38 can't see anything later after I lose a bunch of infantry to bombs, yeah. Okay, let's see, yep. So I could tell here, just by the influence line, that your opponent was planning an attack here. So bye-bye go your Panzer Grenadiers, bye-bye goes your leader, and at this stage now, you should be retreating this Flak 41. You should be moving it right now. Okay, there's the order. And you should be then also reinforcing this with some infantry. That is not enough. You saw your opponent had like maybe 4 squads of infantry. 2 infantry squads is not going to counter that. Okay, this M4A1 has a nice line of sight down the road, because you have no armor support here. So it has to be combined arms, not just infantry, not just MGs. You have to bring, you know, 1 tank, a couple of infantry squads, maybe 1 MG, something like that. Combine your arms together. A recon unit on the top of this hill here would have been amazing, because they can actually see further than standard infantry can. Okay, this is going okay. MG34s are not to be used in close combat like this. They don't work very well. In fact, I think they cannot even shoot at 100 meters. Or 100 meters or less, they can't even shoot. So now the M4A1, it comes in and is powering away at your infantry, and you have no counter to that. No way to stop it. If you had your own tank here, if you had a Panzerschreck squad, then you could poof this M4A1. But because again, you don't have combined arms here, you can't. And unfortunately, your Flak 41 still dies. Now, I don't know why you brought these Panzer Grenadiers on the left here instead of deploying them to assist the Flak 41. Because the Flak 41 is quite an expensive unit, and trying to save it from dying will save you from losing a lot of points. And you can also use these buildings. Buildings provide also extra defense for the units that are inside them, right? So whenever you have buildings, you can put infantry in them, you could put, say, an MG in here, that would work really well, and then they can fire on any soft targets as well. They help to hold the influence line. Okay, good use of a mortar there, that's nice. Pinning down the enemy infantry units, now they're falling back, okay, that's good. Q move, that's good. These two should also be moving up at this moment. Yeah, in that forest, they push forward with infantry and lose it. I do manage to retake it though. Yeah, I mean, you're always gonna lose things, and objectives and locations are gonna change hands a lot of the time. Again, here, I see you're still not using any of the buildings here. These buildings on the edge here, great for MGs, great for infantries, again here as well, and over here. And that way then, if any enemy units try to push through this forest, they come to the edge. Your units in the buildings here can shoot on them, and they get increased defense by being in the buildings. Okay, take the hill, that's good. How do I prevent units on the edge of town buildings getting picked apart by RT, HE shells from tanks and assault guns? Don't put them on the edge of the forest. Like, if there's HE guns or tanks that are there, then you can move your infantry to this position. They still hold the line. If you put them too close, then they can get shot. So if there's a tank here that can shoot your infantry, don't put your infantry here, just keep them here. Maybe move them over to here as well. And in this case then, you don't need line infantry to hold this position. You can instead just keep a couple of CQC infantry squads inside the forest, and that will prevent any enemy infantry squads from coming in. You could put anti-tank guns and machine guns here. So in this case, if the problem is that your opponent has tanks or vehicles, then you want to bring anti-tank guns into the edge of the forest. They will counter that. If your opponent has HE infantry guns in the forest here, then you can use artillery or planes to bomb that, and then you bring your anti-tank guns out and things like that. You don't need infantry to fight or to put on the edge of forests for no reason. The infantry squads fight at around 200 to 750 meters range. If those ranges aren't available, then you don't need those infantry squads at all. They just serve a specific purpose. If they can't serve that purpose, then you don't buy them because you don't need them. They're not going to really do anything effectively for you. And again here, this M4 has been here for a while now, and you still haven't brought any anti-tank into this area to defend this objective. Here comes a Panther. But it's been a while now that this M4 has been here shooting your infantry for free, essentially. And the problem with the Panther here is that this is a close quarters combat, okay? If you put it maybe on the hill here, where it could shoot at almost maximum range, that would be a good place for it. But if you want to fight here, you could just take a cheaper tank like a Stug, and you could just put it here, and anything that comes out of the forest, it will already be facing. And even if you lose it, you're not losing so many points. This Panther here, in close quarters, is much more likely to get side shot and die. Okay, bringing Recon to the edge of the forest, that is useful. I'm not sure you need this many infantry squads in here anymore, and you could be using these infantry squads here to push into these buildings and pressure this objective here. And again here, like, you can see this influence line here, your opponent has some infantry in here. So why not bring some infantry down the road into the buildings here and push into the forest here? Okay, the center area is fine, not pushing into this area this time, your opponent does. Could have brought some tanks down here, for example. Like a Stug would be able to take care of that M4A1 from this road here without getting shot back, because the M4A1 has 1500 meter range, and your Stug can shoot from 1750 range, which is right here, and the M4 cannot shoot back. Nice little location there. You could use the tree line here as well for a Flak 41 with its 2-kilometer range, would also cover most of this basin. I am bad at multitasking. I mean, we all, have this problem when we play Steel Division 2. It requires you to do so many different things, to look at so many different things, to understand so many different things, to respond in so many different ways. It's a hard game. There's no way to describe it in any other way. It's a hard game. But if you want to do better than your opponent, then these are the things that you have to do. So this is I'm a bit unsure about this. This is risky. There's an M4 in there, right? It could pop out. Even like along the forest edge here, you see? And your Panther wouldn't be able to shoot it, but it would be able to shoot your Sturm Pioneers. So this is a bit of a risky deployment, I think. And putting them into the forest here, There are no enemy infantry units here, right? If they deploy here, and you want them to go here, they're then going to have to run across this open area, right? Which is risky. With this Panther here, you could have instead deployed them into this forest, or you could probably even just deploy them straight into this one here. You have the Panther, you have the SBW, you have good support here. Oof. P-51, but it goes down. Okay, that's fine. This is risky. It's very easy to kill infantry transports. You just unload them and make them run, they're gonna be harder to kill. Okay, so your opponent spends a lot of points on P-51s. That is a good time then to start pushing because he's going to be a little bit weaker on the ground than you. Those P-51s are not cheap. They're like at least 100 and something points each. That's 300 and something points he just spent on fighters. And then, you know, this is like the mental math side of Steel Division. You look at what your opponent buys, and if you know how much the units cost, you can calculate then that they're going to be down that many points in terms of ground units compared to you. As long as you're not just buying fighters at the same amount to counter them. Okay, so here the Stern Pioneers should be leading, not the Panzer Grenadiers. Okay, one here. Not sure if this is going to be enough, but let's see. Okay, and now you just sit in the forest. I'm not sure why. And again, like these two Panzer MG26s have just been sitting there the whole game, right? So one unit could have done the same thing that both these units were doing. Okay, there's the engineers, okay. Oof. Oof. And now this Panzer Grenadier should not be going forwards. It's probably just going to get grenaded. And like this is a perfect location or situation now to use an off-map unit. Or to use some heavy artillery or some planes. Like, you know your opponent has a bunch of infantry here, right? So now you can send bombers, you can target the ground here or here. I mean, I would do it after you have some more infantry ready, so you can bring the infantry to the edge of the forest here, bomb here, and then advance with your infantry, and whatever your opponent has is probably going to be pretty dead or suppressed. Yeah, I was not expecting those engineer grenades to be so stupidly deadly. Those were full strength Stern Pioneers and they died in one grenade. Yeah, because they're only a 5 strength squad. And most of the time grenades do something like 8 damage, so bye bye go the Stern Pioneers. Now you have a SIG 33 here that if you just move up, you can use to kill this MG. Didn't need to spend your expensive AR-234 to kill this one unit here. I mean, it will kill it, which is fine. Boom. And these rockets are not that effective at killing things. Like, they're good at pinning things down. So if you want to use this in a kind of better way, and maybe you will do it here, but judging by the orders, I think not. If you want to use this in a better way, you target and you aim, and then just in time for it to finish shooting, you bring your infantry up and you unload and you run into the forest, as all your opponent's units are then already suppressed and they can't fight back. They're already pinned down, right? So this is the perfect time now to send infantry into the forest, but instead you send them into this forest here, and so you have an advantage at the moment against the infantry in this forest. Let's have a look. Okay, there's actually nothing there. They all retreated. So you could have actually sent infantry into the forest at this stage, and they would have been okay. The key is really that you don't just use units individually. They have to be combined together. Yeah, I mean, the timing is just something that you have to practice, right? But the general idea is that things aren't used just in a vacuum. You don't just use artillery because you can use artillery. You use it to lead up to something, to connect to something. If you use, your rocket barrage, then use it to connect to something and not just by itself. And you had them here. You had them ready to go in, but instead you place them in this safe position here, and then you target the forest again, but you don't actually know if there's something there now, right? Your opponent can move their units away. The influence line just says, you have some units. Let's measure. Now remember that the recon units don't affect the influence line, right? So measuring from here back to here, what's the distance? It's about 500 meters, right? So 500 meters from your unit to the influence line means your opponent has units about 500 meters behind it. So you can judge here, using this little trick, you can judge that actually my opponent does not have any units here. Okay, let's measure from this side instead. So from here to the influence line is 100 meters, so your opponent has something here at least. But from this side, it's quite far away, and let's see if that's true. So yeah, your opponent does have something here, and from here, 500 meters to this unit is correct. We see that this is a little trick that you can use. Measure from your units to the influence line, and then measure the same distance back. You know where your opponent then has their units, which is not here. So this is a waste of your rockets at this stage. Now the other thing you can do here is, right, at this stage you're tunnel visioned onto this one forest area, right? And all you're thinking about is, how can I send more infantry into this forest to beat my opponent's infantry in this forest? But you don't have to play that way. You could play in a totally different way. You can play in a kind of circumvention style. You could alternatively focus on taking this forest and this objective here, or pushing up this road with tanks. If you buy some more tanks, you put them here and here. You use some recon so that they can see down this road, so that your tanks don't die in a fire like that. And that would be using these buildings, which you haven't used at all. So definitely consider using the buildings the next time you play. Put infantry into the buildings, put recon into the buildings, and then at least you can see what's happening here behind the forest. And then maybe think about not just playing the game that your opponent is playing. Your opponent wants to fight in the forest here. They have engineers with grenades, they have flamethrowers, so why not just avoid the forest? Let your opponent waste all of their infantry points in this forest. You can hold this objective just with some units even along the line here. And then instead push this objective. Push onto this hill here. Push around the forest this way, up the road with some tanks and infantry. And then all of the points that they spend trying to defend this forest with CQC infantry is actually going to be very ineffective, because you're not fighting in the way that they want to fight. So this objective has been lost here, which is a little bit unfortunate. You'd only need one infantry squad in the forest here to hold this objective, but that's your ally and not you. But if you see, if you check the map quickly and you see that happening, it's not so difficult, I think, to just send one infantry unit to the forest here, deploy here, ask them to Q move down to the forest here, and they'll probably be able to help take that objective. and slow this tick that's happening now. That would change it back to 1311 or 1410. This objective here, like again, if we measure, right? We measure the distance. It's about 200 meters. 200 meters means there's infantry in these buildings here, and you have these nice rocket trucks, right? If you bombarded these buildings, those infantry would be toast, and you would probably take this objective. Now, there's probably also an infantry unit in one of these buildings here. So just putting some infantry here, maybe a machine gun in the building here. You have the SIG-33 on top of the ridge here to provide supporting fire. You have a strong position here to take this objective. And from there, you then might be able to leapfrog up onto the hill here and also take that. So out goes the grenade, bye-bye goes the Panzer Grenadier. Oof. And this is where Panzer Grenadiers beat engineers. Once they are outside that 100-meter range, where they can't use their grenades, then the Panzer Grenadiers will be able to shoot them with impunity. And, oof, how did you lose this one? So something is pushing up here. Having some units in the forest here could help with that. Just some infantry here, maybe a Panzerschreck or an M4 or a Stug on the edge here. This Panzer Grenadier unit could be supporting here. Ooh, very nice. And also here, you have a Panzer Grenadier at the edge of the forest. You know your opponent doesn't have anything coming down here. So why not use these two Panzer Grenadiers here to send them down to this forest and then push again up into the buildings here to ensure that, you know, even if these guys get damaged, get pinned down, whatever, have to fall back, you then have a second wave ready to send up. Panther D, this is a little bit risky going across here. It's going to expose his side armor. Never, never, never expose side armor like this to the front line. You want the front of the tank facing the front line most of the time. Or facing where you know your opponent's units are. Your opponent has an anti-tank gun in here. Your Panther turning his side like that is going to be a dead Panther. If you want to bring it onto the hill here, take it off the road and up the hill here, and then it can move with its frontal armor facing the enemy into the same position, right? Again, I keep looking at these buildings that you could be using with infantry to screen for your Panthers here, and you're not doing it. It hurts me to see. Okay, your opponent pushes again with engineers into here, and again you start spamming infantry, but it's too late. Like this is too reactionary. You know your opponent has a lot of infantry build up here. You need to prepare for that in advance, not when your units are already dead. Like this is too late. You can't fix this now. And I'm going to talk about efficiency of force again here. 2 Panthers, that's a lot of points. That's 260 points there, right? But they're just sitting. This is 260 points, 130 of which could be over here, killing this M4A1. Okay, this Panther gets it, that's fine. That could be, if supported with infantry screening in here, and here could be pushing or pressuring this area here. Okay, out goes some bombs. The Panther turns its side. This is risky, gets penetrated by the M4A1, kills it. Okay, that's fine. Sending Sturm Pioneers in while also targeting with the rocket truck is a bad idea. Targeting your own troops never tends to go very well. And this light forest is not where you want to send Sturm Pioneers. In light forest you can see about 200 meters, right? We can see that with the C key. But if you look at the weapons on the Sturm Pioneers, their range is only 100 meters. This is a very, very bad place for stern pioneers. Heavy green forest, dark green forest, yes, perfect. Over here, dark green forest, yes, perfect. This light green forest, no. This is where you want to use line infantry. The Panzer Grenadiers work well in this area, Stern Pioneers work well in this area. Put Stern Pioneers into this area and they're likely to get toasted. Bye bye Jumbo. Okay, you took this objective, that's nice. This has lasted too long here. This whatever infantry unit is in the forest here, this armored rifles has allowed to live for far too long, by my reckoning. Now the good thing about flamethrowers versus engineers is that if the stern pioneers can fire their flamethrower first, then the engineers have to move because they're on fire, they're standing on fire ground, right? And when the engineers are moving, they can't throw the grenade. They have to be stationary to throw the grenade. So they do actually counter grenade units fairly well, but now we see the problem that I talked about earlier. They do not do well in this open area where they can't use their 100-meter range. So these engineers shot at them. You then also used a move order. They took extra damage. They died. And at this stage, then you will also send these Panzer Grenadiers into the heavy forest, which is CQC territory. They won't do well in there. And this kind of tunnel vision on this side here has allowed this center area to kind of collapse. And the move order on the tanks, bad idea, almost took some side shots there. Always consider, you know, when you're moving your tanks across somewhere, are there gonna be any enemy tanks, any anti-tank guns that could shoot them in the side when they do that? If yes, reverse the tanks first and make them go in a safer route. So if you reverse them down the road here, right? That's still with frontal armor facing, and then they can cut across this way, and the forest cuts off the vision from here, and that keeps them safe. But again, putting tanks next to heavy forest is almost always a bad idea if your opponent has units there. These armored rifles come out of the forest here, they're going to pop your Panther very, very easily. A tank here, but no anti-tank buy from you. Means these Panzer Grenadiers are at the mercy of this M4A3. Now, you have a little pocket here, right? And something you can do in these kinds of situations is, if you take one of these Panzer Grenadiers, or all of them even, or 3 of them, and you Q-move them down the forest here, or through the forest here, if they take out enough key units, they can close this pocket and cut off whatever units there are pushing this little bubble here. Let's see. So it's just an armored LMG rifles here, okay? Engineers, but they have no frag shells left. So actually this push is very, very weak here. You just don't have any units in any way to stop it, and therefore it still succeeds. This is a bad idea. If your opponent thinks to move those armored rifles, that's going to be one dead Panther. I'm just waiting to see this influence line move and the Panther go pop. Now here, you've taken this objective, right? But it's just one weakened Panzer Grenadier squad with 3 men left. That needs reinforcing. And you do have the Panzer Grenadiers up here that you could move down and move up into these buildings here to secure it better. You've had this Puma here as well for since the beginning of the game, right? This is now 30 minutes of the Puma sat behind the forest. And again, this is the This is the principle of efficiency of force. If you have units, use them to do something. Don't just let them sit there doing nothing. Find a way for them to be somewhere, to cover something, to move up to the front line, so that the points you have on the field are being used. If you always have units in the back not being used, then that actually starts to add up. Okay, these armored rifles finally dying. Luckily you reversed the Panthers so that they couldn't get that bazooka kill. That's nice. One way you can think about this kind of forest fight here is like Bruce Lee says, you know, you have to be like water. When you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. When you put water into a bowl, it becomes the bowl, whatever, right? So when somebody pushes you hard, well, let them push you hard, and then you divert your power to push hard in a different location. Because your opponent can only push hard by spending a lot of points in that area. And so if they spend a lot of points in this area, that means they have not spent a lot of points in this area. So let them push here, let them get bogged down, let them get set up in this forest here, where they have one objective. And then defend along the line here in the forests, and instead have a nice punch over on this side instead. And in that way then you force your opponent to stop doing that thing and instead try to redivert their forces. But if they've spent 500 points here, and you defend with 200 points, and you attack with 500 points here, they can't instantly defend this area with 500 points. They have to wait 5 minutes to get those 500 points worth of defenses. And so it's going to take them a long time to be able to even stop you from pushing if you do it with a sizable force. So this is a way then that you don't allow your opponent to just always dictate the flow of battle. If they are trying to push you in a certain area, sometimes you can just let them do that and instead redirect where you are pushing instead. Okay, this is good. Pushing onto this objective here. Now you're just pushing with infantry. You do also need to support with other units as well. Like these Panthers can be coming up. Good. You have a recon unit. That's useful. Another recon infantry in this building here would be better, I would say. But so far this is going okay. You're killing units. And you've almost gotten up to the flag here. Now, just supporting on one side is not enough. If you had some recon vehicles here, or some more tanks here, or you had the Flak 41 able to move up a bit so that it could see, you see here? At this location, your Flak 41 would be able to kill this M4A3. But because it's a little bit further back, it can't do that. So just using your C key on the edge of the forest here, you know, sometimes it allows you to get a bit of a better position, especially if you want to move forward. Okay, so you see your opponent is kind of trying to fortify this area with infantry. At this stage, I would just retreat these infantry, let them fall back, and then just pound it with something. Pound it with artillery, let them sit in the buildings and get smushed, and then just keep some infantry here. Once it's smushed, attack again. Here comes a jumbo. Flak 41 supporting nicely the infantry. Will it get that side shot on the jumbo? That would be very, very nice. Okay. Yeah, come on, come on, come on. Do the thing. Just missed. Jumbo turns frontal armor, and now it won't get any penetrating hits against that 190 armor. You took this objective as well. That's good. That's 2 objectives you took on this side. The front here is kind of stabilizing, and you're back to 12-12. Okay, this is going fine. Sometimes you lose objectives, but as long as you take other objectives, then it's still even. The one thing that's just missing a little bit here, I would say, is some recon infantry to look down this road. I mean, look, they can see all the way down the road, down to even here, right? That's a really nice building. some extra reinforcement onto this objective here, because that's just a 3-man Panzer Grenadier squad. And you could even try something sneaky, like sending some infantry down the hill here, right? And then up into the forest here. If you send some line infantry and some CQC infantry, you can then start pressuring this forest. A lot of the time, you know, when it's like this kind of situation, your opponent just wants to put MGs, they want to put anti-tank guns in here, and they won't have any infantry to fight you with. Let's check if that's true. So they just have 1 armored rifles, and then they have the mortars in the back. And so if you did sneak your infantry, or I wouldn't say sneak, because they probably would get spotted at some point, but you might be able to sneak up into this forest here, you can then pressure this and force your opponent then to spend points defending this forest, maybe having to move their mortars, maybe having to move their tanks because they're worried about getting panzer-shreked. You can always look for different places where you can attack in different ways. I don't know why you retreated these Panzer Grenadiers here. Just a little bit forwards here, under the ridge, and they would hold this objective. Okay, taking back this hill, that's fine. I would still keep some on the edge here to stop any infantry coming out here. Don't send everything into one objective. Just be proportionate in your response. You know, once you've wiped out your enemy units, that's fine. You could even bring, I know I wouldn't bring a Stug up here. It's too cramped. Too much CQC. And here, four Panzer Grenadiers, and what are they doing? Having a picnic. 1 or 2 could do the same thing, and you could reroute two other ones to come down here and reinforce this location here to defend this objective. And this is actually a really weak defense here. Like, if your opponent just pushes with a couple of infantry squads and an M4, this is going to be hard for these 2 units to defend against, and they wouldn't even need to push out to take the objective. They would just need to hold the edge of the forest, and they would be able to capture that objective from you. The influence line can still extend further without having to put a unit right on the objective. So losing Panthers here. And again here, using the rule of measuring the influence line so that you know when is a good time to use rockets, right? So from your Panzer Grenadier to the objective is 600 meters. So then from the line back here, 600 meters, your opponent has no units here actually. We can judge that just by measuring the distance from the units to the influence line, and let's prove it. No units here, rockets are being wasted, right? So before you send those rockets out, look at the influence line, measure the distance from your units to the influence line, and then that same distance behind it, and you'll know whether it's good to barrage or not. But a lot of the time, you still just want to barrage when you have that kind of certainty that your opponents have units there. This is too many units, and one bomb is going to damage multiple units at a time. You don't need this many units clumped up like this. It's too easy to counter with a half-track, for example. You only have 1 anti-tank Panzer Grenadier, so if a tank comes up here, if half-tracks come up here, then you're going to lose this fight, and that one bomber pinned down 4 of your infantry units in one run, because they were all clumped up together like that. And so that's why it's not efficient to clump them up. Okay, so in this case here, like, if you are holding the objective, you don't need to keep pushing. Like, you can just keep units behind the houses where they are safe using the line of sight like this, behind these buildings here, behind the buildings like this. And just then, as long as you hold the objective, that's how you're gonna win the game. You can make your opponents take down just by holding the objectives. And once you hold it, you don't need to keep pushing and keep trying to fight. Sometimes just holding it and keeping that kind of stalemate, even if your opponents have units there, is enough. And you still have a Panzer Grenadier unit here that you could just put at the ridge here, and probably it would still hold the objective anyway. It doesn't need to be right on top of it. So these Stokes actually have a nice line of sight over this here. Just some infantry in the forest here, or just at the edge here. With these two supporting would be enough. They don't need to go right into the forest here to take this objective. Okay, your ally comes in with some cluster bombers. Wonderful. Gonna get them shut down though, that's not so wonderful. And there's no anti-air in the center here. Like another Flak 41 could have been placed in the forest here. Could have been placed on this one here. This is a nice supporting location for this objective as well. Again, you're bombing this, but I don't think there's any enemy units really here, right? Look at the distance from your units to the front lines, about 500 meters. There's one unit right at the back here. Okay, so it is working. But just this one Panzer Grenadier on the ridge here, because it's a ridge, right? Then keeping them here, they can't be seen by anything on top of the ridge. And as long as you can protect it from things to the right here by using your Panthers. Oh, the two Panthers that were here, providing cover, providing fire support, or even just bring some more Stooks could do the same thing. And then at least you could just sit there with your infantry unit and pressure this objective. They don't need to go over the hill. Just sit here, for example, and look. This location here is pretty clear from all enemy units. I mean, there's that one half track, but that's it, right? And that way it's still going to push the influence line. You're still going to pressure this objective without having to go up, where it can actually get shot by all the things that are behind it there. I think at this stage though now, like in this kind of close quarters combat, the Shermans and the M4s are much better than the limited armor that Nordland gets, right? Nordland only gets 4 cards of armor, and your opponent is playing as the 3rd Armored Spearhead, which gets a lot of armor, and so they are at this stage just out-armoring you, and you don't have any anti-tank guns here. I think you forgot to buy any anti-tank guns this game other than the Flak 41s. So just remember that you don't have to fight tanks just with tanks, you know. Anti-tank guns are also just as effective, if not more effective sometimes. And so you've got an MG here. That's a good location for an MG. Put an anti-tank gun here as well. And that way, you know, you cover both things. If it's infantry coming out, okay, away goes the MG. If it's tanks coming out, if it's half-tracks coming out, okay, away goes the anti-tank gun. And that way you cover both things. But this way, with just an MG here, any tanks that come out here, there's nothing really to counter them, is there? There's just the Stooks up on the hill here, but they don't have line of sight. You could bring one over to this location here, and that would have a nice covering fire arc here. You could have some in the town here, and again, that would cover this road here. That would mean your opponent cannot really cross this road without encountering that supporting fire. We see, like, these Stooks are here, but a lot of the time they're not doing much, and actually they're not even being screened by infantry. So there's nothing to stop your opponent from pushing up the hill from the side here, from this side here, and you know, Stooks being casemate tank destroyers with no turret, it's going to be really hard for them to fight things that are flanking them because they have to turn the whole damn tank before they can do that. And so that's the weakness of these kinds of tanks. If your opponent knows how to exploit that, then you're gonna have a bad time. Wow, that is a large buy. I said this last time as well. If you have that many points left to spend all at once, then you've been doing something wrong. Because you want to be spending regularly and supporting regularly, and not have so many points that you can buy 5 Stoogs, 6 Stoogs, and 7 or 8 infantry units all at once. What is that? It's like 500 and something points, right? You just want to get into this habit of, okay, I got 100 and something points from this minute. Here's 2 infantry squads and a Stoog. They're gonna just sit here. Okay, next minute, again, the same thing. 2 infantry squads and a Stoog, 2 infantry squads and a Stoog, and again. And then you can build up a nice kind of force. And you don't have to always place your force like right at the front line, immediately fighting something. You can put some infantry in the forest here, some Stoogs in the forest waiting, some Stoogs on the hill here, some infantry here, Stoogs here, infantry here, again here, again here. And once you build up this big force, then you can wait for your opponent to attack you, and then they come face to face with all of these tanks, all of these infantry. Hopefully you whack them real good, and they lose a whole bunch of units, and then you counterattack because they tried to attack. They fell into your massed force, not all in one giant blob like this. This is very, very easy to kill with one bomber plane, or not kill, but at least send packing, make them fall back because they got pinned down. This mass push. Oh, your army has been defeated. I guess you surrendered there. And you could have even brought some Stoogs into the light forest here, just looking over here, some into the light forest here, and there's the end of the game. So again, don't save up all of your points like that. Just try to. You could even you could put a little alarm thing or stopwatch on your phone in front of you, and just make it beep every minute, like this. And when it beeps, you know, buy something. It doesn't matter what it is a lot of the time, even if you just bring it into a kind of reserve position and you start filling up the town here with some infantry, the town here with some infantry, the forest with some infantry, this forest with some infantry here and here and here, and you don't always have to be attacking with it, or you don't even have to attack with it at all. You just keep sending it out, and then it's there. And then when your opponent attacks, and you can destroy their units that are attacking because you have this nice built-up force. Once those units are destroyed, you are ready then to counterattack, and you have everything ready. You have a lot of units spread out across this front line, and you're not just attacking in one big giant clump moving forwards like this in a blob. Don't blob, it's a bad idea. Spread them out into combined little patches. And then once you're ready, send all of those units forward in their small groups, not one big clump, right? It's very easy to bomb. It's not so easy to bomb 10 smaller blobs. And that way then you also get the crossing lines of fire, and you're able to get flanking shots on enemy tanks. Like maybe there are a bunch of tanks here, so maybe it's hard to shoot them from the front in this way. But if you're also pushing from the left side here, and you can get onto this hill, then these tanks are faced with a real problem because they're being shot from the right side, from the front side, and also from the left side here, from the hill. and then that's when you start pounding your opponent. So that's gonna be the lesson, I guess, here, especially seeing that giant that giant convoy of units right at the end. Try to set a timer, right? Make something go beep every minute, and then you get into this habit of buying regularly rather than getting this giant reserve of points. By the way, before this is over, mind quickly taking a look at my 97th Gods deck before I made. Yeah, just send me the code on Discord and I'll load it up right now. Yes, let's exit. Okay, so in a phase, Tenko Desaniki and not Avto Machiki. So where did you use those half tracks? Here? Are they in half tracks? No. Or they are. Let's just take them out for now. These ones, no, not in the half track. Okay, can we take these Tenkos? Yes, like this. These Tenko Desaniki in the M2A1s in A. Okay, Gavadia DP in A. Also take normal Gavadia in A. They don't need to go in the half tracks. Just go in this to the backup. Yep. 1, 2, 3. That's good. 1 for B, 1 for B. Good. Okay, that's fine. That works. Snaperi, yes. Tanks. Okay, 2 of these in B, that's fine. Those in B, that's fine. This is a great A-phase tank to bring. I would bring this. So I'll take that one out, actually, and I'll bring this one instead. Has a nice 160 frontal armor. It's only 130 points, so it takes on pretty much every other medium tank in the game, and it wins. Because it still has reasonable penetration, but it has that very nice frontal armor. And it's cheap. Well, it's cheap for a heavy tank. It's only 130 points compared to the IS-2 220 points, right? Okay, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine. No. This is better than the ZIS-3. ZIS-2. Look at the difference. 122 millimeters of penetration, 50% accuracy, 1750 range. Look at the AP shells here. 105, 1500, 45. This is in all ways worse as an anti-tank gun. The only benefit it has is that it also has HE shells. But otherwise, if you're looking for something that is anti-tank, you want the ZIS-2 and not the ZIS-3. So maybe bring both. Maybe take this one out of C, bring this one into B, like that. And I think that should work just fine. A lot of the time, you don't want to bring anti-tank guns into C phase anyway, if you have things like tanks, which you, now that I look at it, I see you don't. So let's see, you could instead bring these in C. If we take this one out, bring your T-34 85s in B, and you could even bring these in B as well. Okay. It's a bit of a limited tank tab for 97th. Let's see, can we save some points elsewhere? Okay, we don't need both of these in A. This is nice. It does work. It's not amazing like the Flak 41 because the AP is only 145 at 1750. Flak 41 has 2000 range and 160, so it is superior. So what you could do is you could take this one out, and instead bring this one in B. That should be enough anti-air for your needs. This one in B. Now this is the Apocalypse Now Riverboat artillery, and it's amazing. This one as well is also amazingly devastating. The weakness of this unit is that it is very slow. It's a plane, but it's still only 110 kilometers an hour. Has awful resilience, very, very easy to shoot down. But if you can use this unit and you can get this off-map off before it gets shot down, it's just going to destroy everything in that radius. So if you already have this this off map in B, you could even take the riverboat in C and get two of them. Because if you're playing a balanced game, right? You're going for the long game, then if you're in a game that goes for 45 minutes like the last game did, you've got plenty of opportunity to buy both of these and destroy whole parts of the map with those four apocalyptic off maps. The HE clustered planes are awful. Don't want to bring those. What could you bring instead? PE2. These PE2s are nice. You have some in B. I guess you could bring, let's see. No. You could bring these in A instead. Only 85 points. They've got 450 kg bombs. This is a nice little tool that you can bring out just to drop onto some, anti-tank guns, some infantry, whatever. Doesn't cost too much, and as long as you don't have the automatic evacuation on, once it's dropped its bombs, you can then make it turn around and start using its guns as close air support as well. So it has that nice kind of dual purpose thing going on for it. Otherwise, that seems fine for fighters. I'm not sure if I would buy quite so many fighters, personally, but that's up to you. So let's throw another off map in here because these things are also beautiful. And then what have we got? We want some tanks, right? So are you gonna spend 220 points on a tank in B? Maybe. 2 points left. Do we really want snipers in B? We could take those out, right? That's enough infantry, that's enough infantry, that's enough infantry, that's enough anti-tank. You could even lose the ZIS-3s if you want, because you have these anti-infantry guns anyway, right? They can do that same job of HE damage. So if we lose these, we've got anti-tank in A, anti-tank in B, and the Su-85s as well. Okay, that's nice, that works. You could then throw some more IS-2s into C phase so that you don't run out of tanks. 3 more points, and I guess then it becomes optional what you want. You could get some leaders. So you could get 8 leaders in B if you take these ones. I would say, like, at this kind of build here, you have all of the necessary things. What I would do though is I would change this commander for one of the armored ones instead. Let's see. This one has better armor. It's 20 points, but this way, with at least having some armor, it's not gonna die to a random artillery shot where this unarmored motorbike would. So those extra 20 points actually are worth it, I would say. Okay, so like this, I would say this gives you pretty much the necessities. Okay, so I'll save that. I'll even screenshot it for you. And then I would say the other 3 points, you can just spend it on whatever you want. That's a flex, right? The other things here I would say would work pretty well the way they are. So you could get the leaders if you want. You could bring some MGs. You could bring those other anti-tank guns that have the HE shells if you want. You could bring some extra recon, some extra anti-air, some more off-map or another plane. 3 points as a flex pick for whatever you like. The other stuff I would say is pretty solid, like this. Okay, so that is gonna be it from me. I have to go now. I have some other work to do. I hope that helped, and I'll probably see you again next time.